Welcome to the We Win Injury Law Podcast Show. I'm Tyler Todd, your host, sitting here with my co-host, Jaron the Snow Canyon Man Sandberg. Welcome back, everybody. We talked about last episode the Karen retrial, which is a absolute criminal justice debacle. And we're going to talk about another trial, a high-profile trial that's going on right now. I'm sure everyone's familiar with. And it's not on TV, which I find extremely odd.
That's the disappointing part. We all wanted it. That federal court rules.
The freak off. That's what this episode is entitled, The Freak Off. That's it. We're going to be talking about P Diddy and everything going down with that trial. Hopefully we provide some insight regarding some legal analysis, but in all reality, we're talking about how crazy this is.
I know. These are crazy topics.
I mean, who saw it? Did you see it coming?
I just always wonder how these guys, that keeps happening during kind of the height of the Me Too movement, do you think they were all like, I'm next? And then when it never came, they thought, I'm free.
I got away with it.
I got away with it. But then
But how did that go, untalked about? And maybe it was in smaller circles, right? Yeah. For so long during that movement, when you have Weinstein and Epstein. Wait, there's a trend. If your last name ends with "een,"
yeah,
you're going to be maybe I don't know.
You better be careful. You're next.
You're next. I'm just kidding.
Or if it ends with "itty."
Or Itty. If your name ends with Itty,
yeah.
You watch out.
Watch out.
And if you have a bottle of baby oil in your house, you're next.
Yeah. Or 1,000 bottles.
The freak off. Okay, so let's talk about this trial. When it came down that he was being indicted, I think it was a little surprising. I mean, it hasn't been completely a shock to people because we've been hearing rumors for years about Bieber, right? Yeah. And I'm a Bieber fan. You like Justin Bieber?
You're a belieber.
I'm a belieber. I like his music.
You've listened to the music a lot. When we golf, it seems like Bieber comes on.
Yeah, a little JT, a little Justin Bieber.
Yeah, I got to make this putt because I'm listening to my belieber.
Yeah, I'm a belieber.
I like it.
I like him. But
he's got good music. We're not gonna.
I vibe with it. But we've been hearing rumors for years about how he was kind of groomed, right, a little bit. Yeah. As a young boy, 13, 14 years old, right? At parties with Diddy. And I haven't looked at the lyrics of his songs and been like, oh my gosh, look at those lyrics. That is talking about sex trafficking in Hollywood. But
to some extent, that's kind of some of the music that a lot, at least most people are familiar with. I mean, some of this music is kind of violent, and it's about sex, drugs. I mean, even sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It's sex sells, and
a lot of it.
So some of it, there's always some part of you when you hear this, even in the lyrics, because now it's getting hyper-analyzed. But at the time, you're like, oh, they're exaggerating, or they're, it's.
Well, I mean, even as we were growing up, right? I mean, we had artists that were doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And your parents are like, don't ever listen to that, and you do. Yeah. And everyone listens to it, and it's still on today, and maybe even worse. I mean, there's Sexy Red. She's got some crazy lyrics.
Yeah, there's a lot of them with a lot of crazy lyrics. And some of the music that you maybe didn't listen to the lyrics, now as a parent, I have to be like, ooh, now I'm listening.
And Doja Cat.
You can't listen to some of that stuff.
Lyrics. I mean, I like Doja Cat, but she's got some lyrics. So it's not like it's this weird thing. I mean, I guess depending on who you're talking to, it's weird, but it's not a new thing. And I think that's why all the underlying issues with Bieber, right, and some of the rumors about being groomed by Diddy, you heard it, but then you're like, well, isn't that every party?
Well, even the way that the music videos look, it looks like they kind of live this rave lifestyle. Well, you'd expect it happen at a rave, but at a party,
right? So I mean, it's almost well, that's what they do.
Yeah.
So then. But what that does, right, is it creates credibility issues for the victims, or consensual arguments that a lot of it was consensual, even though, right, some of the allegations of Diddy is that they were drug induced and influenced and manipulated by power and money and then drugs.
So for someone listening that knows nothing about this case, let's catch him up.
Yeah. So P Diddy, Sean Combs, is being indicted, and it was indicted, now is on trial currently for sex trafficking, drugs, And what else?
Transportation. Transportation to engage in prostitution.
Right, across state lines, and that's why it's federal.
He's got 2 counts for the sex trafficking, 2 counts for the transportation, and the racketeering.
And just so everybody's aware, too, a lot of these state cases that we're seeing on TV, like the Karen Reed trial, the woman who's defending herself. Oh, right now, too, and we're going to talk about this in another podcast, the Idaho 4.
Yeah.
Right, that's kind of being televised, and that's kind of in the media right now. Those are all state cases.
Yeah.
And so P. Diddy is federal, and that's why...
And federal court has a standing order, just like you never see the Supreme Court of the United States ever give their rulings out, as it's all... They're never video.
Never video. So if any of you are wondering why the P. Diddy case is not on TV, because it's in federal court.
But again, the allegation is that there's these wild parties that occur, and during these parties that apparently have been happening for decades...
Yeah,
to some degree.
The white party, right?
That they've then transported prostitutes or transported people unwillingly, and that's at least the federal claim is that at these parties, at least some of the victims that they have, and I'm surprised not more had come forward.
Well, I mean, then prior to trial, and I'm curious to see who they're gonna call in. There was allegations of Jay-Z and Beyonce being involved and having some knowledge of what Diddy was doing because. Yeah. Jay-Z and Diddy did a lot of stuff together. Yeah. So, and then, but I don't know where they fit into this. And I don't know if they're ever going to come into it. We're going to see.
But this is where it gets really, really interesting because P. Diddy is very influential in the music industry, has the ability to kind of make or break these stars. Again, is credited with kind of finding Bieber and making him. Now, there's allegations that it was detrimental to him, but at the same time, at least for making him more famous than he was.
Kind of like the Harvey Weinstein, right? Yeah. Weinstein, with being a movie producer and having the ability to like direct or guide actresses' careers by, hey, I'll give you this role or whatever, and then you sleep with me.
Yeah, and that's where it's such an interesting line on the criminal prosecution for some of these because some of the stuff to a conservative person would be like, everything they did at these freak-offs should be against the law and
and that's why
terrible and salacious. But to some degree, while a lot of the stuff alleged is embarrassing, would get you fired from HR, it might not rise to the level of criminal, right?
Well, and that's why so many celebrities have distanced themselves, even though they found themselves at those parties. They're distancing themselves by saying, "I didn't know that was happening."
Yeah. Or I got there really early and then I left.
I never saw any of that happen.
Yeah.
Which may be true, right? I can't imagine you go to a normal Hollywood party with celebrities, and most of us have never done that. Yeah. I can't imagine you're going to walk right in and see the 1,000 bottles of Lubes being used on everybody, and it's just this giant orgy. I can't imagine that's happening.
Yeah.
I think most people are going to normal parties where there's drinking and probably drugs to some degree.
Yeah.
And
I don't think any of us has ever thought they're like, oh, celebrities, they don't do drugs. Yeah. They're not.
Well, I don't want to just... look, I'm not going to group celebrities into instant drug users.
But they have
just because they're a celebrity doesn't mean they're a drug user and they're all using drugs at their parties.
The wealthy, kind of even that lifestyle almost promotes that, hey, we all do drugs. They sing about it. Like,
that's what it seems like. But
and now that could be a persona. I get it.
So is that happening? Probably not. I don't know.
Yeah.
But what the allegations of prostitutes and sex trafficking is totally different.
Yeah.
And so he was indicted. He was bound over for trial. And, of course, he's pled his innocence. But the trial is ongoing now.
Now, how do you find, and I always go back to that, how do you find a jury on some of these celebrity cases that don't recognize the defendant? I mean...
with maybe it's just Sean Combs and they don't use, maybe there was a motion in limine, which I don't know if there was, but maybe there's a motion in limine.
They used his real name or something.
That they couldn't use any of his music names or artist, P. Diddy.
They just use Sean.
Yeah, Sean Allen Combs. I don't know if that's
I can't remember. And again, unless this jury is sequestered, which a sequestered jury means that they stay at a hotel and they're cut off from technology, which doesn't happen very often. Unless they're sequestered, I can't imagine they didn't go home day one of the trial and
who is Sean Combs?
And get everything.
They have to know. I mean,
you'd almost want this case to be tried by a like a deaf jury. I don't know, something that
Nuns?
Nuns. Because but then you wouldn't.
Can we get?
How do we find someone that isn't going to go look this up?
We should get the sequestered cardinals that just elected John, Leo, the Pope Leo.
No, the Amish. You need the Amish. The Amish on your jury.
Amish, that's what we got to do.
The Amish on your jury, because they wouldn't go home and look it up.
I can't. No, they wouldn't.
Yeah, they wouldn't.
So it's either the only impartial jury we have are the Amish or the sequestered cardinals.
But I wouldn't want the Cardinals on this case.
I don't. Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, what are you suggesting?
Let's not go there.
No, because then we have a verdict by white smoke.
Yeah, that's true. You
You
can't.
know?
You don't want that.
And so a guilty verdict is white smoke, but
Black.
not guilty is black.
Black smoke.
Wait, or is it the other way around?
It's the white smoke when they pick the Pope.
Yeah. It is white. It is, yeah. And congratulations to
An American.
Pope Leo. American, yeah. Isn't that cool?
That
First
is kinda
American
cool.
ever, right? I think ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Yeah, white smoke for the Pope.
Yep.
So white Pope for not guilty. That's what I meant.
Yep.
And then black smoke for guilty. Yeah. That's actually a brilliant idea. And only Amish juries.
And only Amish juries. Because they won't go home and look it up. You get completely unbiased. Now, they might, in our cases, it might not be helpful when we explain like a car crash because they don't use cars.
Yeah, they only use, like, my buggy would never do that.
Our
Yeah.
buggies have rear-ended other buggies. There's not that big of a deal.
And like it was nose to butt, right? With the horses.
We better be careful. We're like making fun of religion.
I'm not making fun of
we
it.
gotta be
Yeah, I
careful.
mean, we're just saying they're like.
But as far as who wouldn't go home, you're trying to find now. Like, would your mom know who P Diddy was? Because maybe that's who they're just finding is like
They have to.
elderly. I don't know if my mom knows who
you
it
would
is.
have to. You would have
to
so
find
many like.
Who doesn't know who that is?
I don't know, but you have to have. So yeah, that was probably the biggest challenge of starting their trial was getting an impartial jury,
Yeah.
and people that didn't know of or who he was at all, because really,
And especially the celebrity of it too. Like even after you're picked, then you walk outside the courthouse and there's pro P Diddy and anti P Diddy protests going on. I mean, you'd be exposed to all of it so quickly.
yeah, because the protesters have a First Amendment right. In fact, in the Karen Reed trial, the judge had to like allow the protesters to come. She had put out like a buffer, like a 200-yard buffer, and then she had to reverse that and allow them to come back protesting at the courthouse. So you'd have to see it. You would have to, at least the grandeur of it. But this is a big deal because I think it. Well, do you think it's getting more or less than the Harvey Weinstein trial?
I feel like this is getting more attention, but I
P.
think
Diddy.
yeah, but again, because the Harvey Weinstein kind of happened. I feel like post-COVID trials that there's video of the trial have really shot up because you can, it's great content for TikTok and.
Well, Harvey Weinstein was the Me Too movement, and so I felt like there was
the protesting. I would say probably that was the peak protesting. I wouldn't say more protest, but as far as more attention, I don't know. Probably even the Johnny Depp trial is probably our biggest.
Johnny Depp was a big one. I just feel like the Me Too movement got a lot of publicity, and rightfully so. I just don't know what we're getting out of P Diddy, and it's obviously a big trial because he's P Diddy and he's one of the biggest music moguls. I just don't know what we're getting out of it other than it's just like the social media, like TikTok and YouTube and whatnot, and all the memes are like the freak offs, the baby oil, and we're getting a lot of funny content out of it. I don't know if we're getting like some good like, hey, things have to change out of it.
No, I agree. I don't think there's a movement necessarily there.
And that's why I'm like, I would hope that there's, because we don't have like these big witnesses. I think in the Weinstein we had a lot of celebrity, a lot of women that were standing up and talk.
And I think the conviction of Harvey Weinstein was a big affirmation that hey, this behavior is not okay.
It's not okay, and it was like it was a conviction for women. I thought
it felt bigger than just that trial.
Yeah, and not just women, but maybe anybody that's been abused by power or manipulation and an authoritarian figure, right?
And whichever way this trial goes, if he goes to life in prison or is acquitted,
no one really cares.
I don't think this changes society as a whole. I don't think this has a lot of implications for
No, I do
where
feel
the Me
bad,
Too movement, I think, had a lot more impact on a lot of things.
Right. And about the trial, right?
Yeah.
we got really the main witness for the prosecution is the Cassie Ventura.
Yep.
And girlfriend to P Diddy for what, about 10, 11 years?
Yeah, 10 or 11 years.
And so, and the allegations are that it was not consensual, drug induced, used basically as a prostitute. And the theory is that he would bring in prostitutes and then put under, I don't know if he was as well, but at least he would have lots of drugs, cash, the baby oil.
An obsession with baby oil.
Obsession. What was 1,000 bottles found at his home and when he was raided by the FBI? 1,000 bottles?
Baby oil and lubricant, not just baby oil.
Even in like your silliest, grossest minds, like make that make sense. 1,000. I don't know. So what that tells me though is it's bigger than just Cassie Ventura, because
that's what I'm saying. That's what's so bizarre is there's not more. Because like with Harvey Weinstein, it was like the first domino that fell, then everyone flooded behind it. It felt like
there's floodgates opened about victims.
Yeah, and this one now again, maybe there's 1,000 NDAs out there that we just don't know about, that he's been settling with women for a long time, but I don't feel like there was that same flood of me. I was abused as well, and hey, me too. And there's
this is what I think. It's either one, thousands of NDAs, or two, it's bigger than everyone thinks, and everyone's gone silent.
Yeah, kind of the Epstein. It's that same issue.
Everyone's gone silent, and more celebrities and more people and more musicians know way more, and
they're scared to death they're going to get dragged into it.
Yeah, and as soon as, and it may happen, but it's possible that the floodgates will open, kind of like Harvey Weinstein, if one domino falls.
Yeah.
But I feel like everyone's just gone
Crickets.
Radio silent and crickets and like distanced themselves because everybody knows way more than
they should,
and what the prosecution can actually prove. And so the only way they can get him on these charges is they've got Cassie Ventura and they've got his personal assistant. Well, the personal assistant was talking about how he saw guns and drugs and cash.
But to some degree, those are like things we expect from like music moguls, and
I know,
like they flash them in music videos. So then it's like when it happens in real life, you're not like shocked. I know that sounds dumb. And then you're kind of like, okay, versus like if the allegation was Tyler Todd was arrested and inside his house was drugs, guns, weapons, cash, you'd be like, oh my, it'd be the biggest
no
case
one's looking
ever.
No one's looking, right?
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like,
can we pause this? I need to get home for a few minutes.
I'll be back in an hour. Where would you put all the lube bottles?
I don't have 1,000. I have
1,000, yeah. 500 is a lot more appropriate. But that's what I said.
That's why when I heard 1,000, like, that's silly.
Double the amount you need.
Yes. But
you know what I mean? Like, instead, we hear those headlines and you're kind of like, oh, okay, like they're rappers or, music.
And so how does that assistant know that they weren't fake guns? Because the allegation is he had 3 guns in his lap when they were going to look for Surge Knight or Suge Knight.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know. And he could have just been doing I'm a bad boy. That was the name, right? Bad Boys.
Well, and even his defense attorney, one of the initial comments during his opening statement was, you're going to see this video, and I think the prosecution already showed it, of him attacking his girlfriend and I think he's in a bathrobe or she's in a bathrobe. I think he's in the bathrobe.
Outside of like a hotel room.
Outside of a hotel room. And that video, to a lot of people, is what kind of kicked off the, oh my gosh, he is a monster.
What's disturbing? It's pretty gnarly. That's unacceptable.
Very heavy domestic violence. But his attorney's position, and I thought this was a clever way to present it, was...
Clever legal argument
was, hey, if they were charging my client with domestic violence, we'd have already pled guilty. If that was the allegation here, my client freely admits it. You've seen the video. This is clearly domestic violence. And almost like, but almost like felt like, how are we not more shocked by that? That's the defense's best argument. But I do think that it kind of works, because now the jury buys into, well, yeah, they're not charging with that. We're charging with this other thing that we kind of expect rappers and music moguls, and they sing about it almost like it feels like all the things alleged here feel like some of the more out there music videos or something. It just happened to go on for days and days and days.
Yeah, you're right about that. And I think I don't know. I mean, I don't know how this is going to end, because if the jury finds that it was consensual and he's paying this, apparently there's a male escort, right? It's part of their chief witness that was paid to come
Which one?
in.
That's your chief witness. Gosh, that's not yours.
Well, because he's not like...
We were talking about an officer that didn't have a bachelor's degree in the previous podcast, and that was like your, oh my gosh, how is he being a witness?
Totally.
Now we're talking about a male prostitute
that was having sex with his girlfriend in front of him. So it just sounds like he's just a freak.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if you do that, do you.
But again, that's
I'm
the
not
defense's...
condoning paying somebody to have sex with your spouse or partner in front of you.
But if that's the defense's point, right?
But that's the defense's point. Like, hey,
this might be unsavory. This might be unsavory. The domestic violence is terrible. Charge him with domestic violence. He'll plead guilty. These are very unflattering, embarrassing things, but they have nothing to do with drug trafficking or sex trafficking.
Right.
That's his allegation, at least.
And that's a legitimate legal defense.
Yeah.
And that's where it's going to be really interesting where this trial goes, because so far I haven't seen anything that's like, okay, good work, prosecution. And that's what it kind of goes back to, like, how much money is the federal government spending on prosecuting P Diddy?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying he shouldn't be. I don't know enough about what they have.
Yeah.
And maybe, and because it's not
televised,
we don't see as much that's out there. But if you go and try to find what's really there, it's kind of like what you're saying, like, well, duh, isn't that what they all kind of do? And
yeah, like if
the persona that they live.
If the allegation was like, hey, he brought in male prostitutes from across state lines, we're charging with 670 counts of it, because these were like weekly freak-offs. These were not like an isolated one-time party that got out of hand, versus then her allegations are like, feel like a couple of times, not it sounds like there was hundreds if not more of these freak-offs.
But I feel like, kind of your point earlier, where are the hundreds of witnesses?
Yeah, where are all the other victims? Now, again, to get invited to a P. Diddy, this isn't like they have all these average Joe people at these parties. These were, again,
but they could present the NDAs as evidence if they exist.
Well, only if someone brings it forward and admits to it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, but then if there's an NDA, wouldn't that mean it's consensual?
Well, if they signed an NDA, but then also even if there was other victims that had signed non-disclosures after a settlement,
because you can't do
this kind of got kicked off. I don't think my understanding at least is that the feds didn't even catch wind of this case until she filed the civil suit.
Right, but you can't contract yourself like in or out of like criminal charges. You can't say, "Oh, I'm going to sign an NDA and I'm not subject to criminal prosecution."
No, but you can sign an NDA so that witness can't come forward and disclose to the police what happened. So that's what I'm wondering, is if he settled with all the other key players that would have been great witnesses, and now they can't just come forward because they've signed NDAs. Now, again, does the federal jurisdiction trump that so they can kind of pierce that to get witness testimony in criminal prosecution? I don't know.
I think you can.
But how would they know if those people didn't come forward? So again, if I'm a celebrity that have said what he did wasn't correct years ago and signed a settlement, if I don't want to get dragged into this, I'm not bringing it up.
Well, you're worried about, one, the civil liability if you come forward, but then also you're exposing yourself potentially to criminal charges, notwithstanding an NDA. And I don't think that's what they're worried about.
Yeah.
I think they're worried about the bigger picture of what happens once one domino falls. I think they're worried about who it exposes, how many people it exposes, and then what happens to everybody once it's out. Because I think it will destroy the music industry. Not the music industry. I mean, the music industry is huge, but that group of celebrities within the music industry. That's the only reason. I mean, to me, it's the only thing that makes sense.
Well, it's the same argument, right, with the Epstein documents, and why aren't they released yet, and those things, is because of all the people it would have exposed.
Well, that's the only. It's the only thing that, to me, that makes sense why the federal government would be doing what they're doing. Now, the federal government has a lot of stupid things that we all scratch our heads at.
Yeah.
But to go after like one person doesn't make sense. Now, maybe this is just a big win for them, and we took down P Diddy, great, and okay.
Hey, one on the wall for the team that took down P Diddy.
Yeah, good job, Central District of New York. Like, good job. Put P Diddy like in your career accomplishments.
Does it ever make you wonder, like, why are these guys like going after like, you know, like I've seen enough Narcos episodes to be like, whoa, isn't there like a whole criminal enterprise doing this? Why aren't they going after these big groups?
Like, the only thing that makes sense then from a federal government perspective to spend what they're spending is that they have to have an inclination or some evidence that it's a way bigger group.
Yeah.
Right? It's like every movie, and we're talking a lot about movies, but they have evidence of one, so they have like the red line to the one, but it's way bigger.
Yeah, it always is like, oh, this is worse than we thought.
They're trying to get to all the bigger fish.
Yeah.
And it's just everyone is like clammed up.
Well, and we deal with this.
Because wasn't Jay-Z and Beyonce involved like for a hot minute?
At least there was allegations that they were involved, and they put out a statement and saying they weren't involved.
But I thought they were like initially going to be indicted, and then something happened. But like all the rumors about like the Illuminati and Beyonce, right?
I haven't heard that one.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Oh, that apparently like you have to like a lot of the musicians, like you have to recognize Beyonce or say something about her when you're like doing like a speech or you're doing anything like
an award, like an award thing or something.
Award to like recognize like the leadership or something. I could be totally like making some of that up, but that's what I've heard, that there is some like level of
kiss the ring, so to speak, of bend the knee and all hail Beyonce.
Again, I don't know if it's true or not. I'm just internet rumors, but it's interesting when you look at it from an illegal analysis and say, okay, make this make sense from a prosecution perspective, and then from like a federal government perspective on federal resources, and then what they're actually charging Diddy with. At first, I thought there were going to be hundreds of charges. Now there's only like
5 charges.
5.
Yeah, that like I said, I expected a lot more dominoes to fall, and when it didn't, it does. I almost think it almost helps the defense of where's everyone else if these are so terrible, and if he's really forcing everyone into these. If it's really force and not
where
for
all the
fame
witnesses?
Where are all the witnesses?
And all these parties, because when it first hit that P. Diddy was being arrested, right? Because then there were some allegations that he was fleeing to Europe, and then they had I think police or FBI like on boats so no one can get out of his home. It was in Miami.
Yeah.
But when it all first came out, you had there was a bunch of social media videos and whatnot, TikTok and other things that were showing pretty high profile celebrities at these parties.
Yeah.
Where are they?
And none of them are part of the case.
None of them are part of the case, at least that we've seen. So it just doesn't make sense.
Now, just turning a little bit, because obviously some of this got kicked off when she filed the civil suit. If they're convicted, if he's convicted, and I don't know how much of assets have been seized or anything by the feds at this point, getting that conviction beyond a reasonable doubt does help that civil case.
It helps the civil case tremendously. And that could be part of it too. Maybe it's just like, look, we do have regardless of the person or how big or how small, we have an obligation to pursue federal charges. Yeah. And that could be it too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to dismiss that, and that's a possibility. It just seemed like it started way bigger, and then it's kind of gotten way smaller, and it's almost like womp womp.
Yeah. And we don't get it on TV, so it's really not going to be, the most salacious moments are going to be written by a transcript or by someone that was in taking I hate the sketch artist photos.
Now the sketch artist, yeah, and then I was just reading even today before the show, like they're just not that great. I mean, it's not that good of stuff you're like, okay, so we have Cassie Ventura and we have the male escort's name is the Punisher. That's pretty cool.
Okay.
Do we start using the Punisher? Is that the new nickname? That's your new nickname.
I always think of the Marvel Punisher, though.
The Punisher. You're the Punisher. Male escort.
Yeah.
No, you're not. All right,
I would be too expensive
go away
for
from
the P Diddy parties.
yeah,
you know?
yeah. Apparently, he
They
only paid him
couldn't afford- they couldn't
$2,000.
afford
He only
me.
paid the Punisher $2,000.
$2,000 for a week long
$2,000
for a week long freak off.
No, that was just
It's
to have
worth
sex.
at least $3,000.
That was just to have sex with his girlfriend
Oh.
in front of Diddy, like 8 times. I don't know how many times, but that's why I thought $2,000
Yeah, it's worth at least $3,000.
at least. Like, bro, Diddy, you got some money.
Yeah, come on.
$2,000.
You got to pay him at least
The
$3,000.
Punisher needed to like step his prices up or something. I don't
He
know.
does. You know what?
It's almost
after
like-
this trial, that's really.
It's
This is all
almost like-
pushed by the Punisher. After this trial, he's going to start charging $3,000 for the week.
Or he has to lose his nickname because the Punisher does not charge $2,000.
Do they charge him? Has he been charged with anything? I don't.
No, he's a witness.
I know, but like.
Oh no, I don't think.
Do you think he got an agreement that they won't prosecute him to be a witness?
No, but again, you can't be the Punisher and only charge $2,000.
Yeah.
That's at least 10. If you're the Punisher,
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, we're gonna update you guys on the trial as it continues to progress. I'm curious to see what happens, what the evidence they actually have. Is it bigger than it appears? Will a domino fall? That's what I want to know. Because when it first came out, and I think you guys were all seeing the same thing, we were like, oh, LeBron James is there. Oh, so-and-so is there. Oh, Jay-Z. Oh, Beyonce. Oh, I mean, who's really involved with all this stuff? And then-
LeBron wouldn't have been involved.
You love LeBron. I think he was there. I think, was LeBron the Punisher?
He's going under a pseudonym.
Yep. Makes sense. You only charge $2,000. That's something LeBron
Anything he would do though would have to be a crown or a king.
Whatever, dude. He can't even like
A
get up.
lion. He wouldn't be the Punisher.
I don't know. He didn't look very good in the playoffs, but now he is old, and
He got punished in the playoffs.
He got
He
punished.
got punished.
He-
Andrew,
Diddy.
whatever.
P Diddy. Maybe that was it. He's been feeling like, oh shoot, what's going to come out?
Yeah, it's the guilt's been racking.
A lot of
him.
guilt. A lot of guilt.
No, he's not involved. I know.
Okay, not involved. But it'll be interesting to see what dominoes, if any, fall from this case. And it's been kind of like what happens with social media. Things get really hyped up and they die. And people, you want things to die so that people don't keep snooping. And I feel like that's kind of what has happened. Kind of like in the Baldoni Lively case, right? A lot of social media, a lot of hype, a lot of social media was nuts. And then if Lively and Ryan Reynolds' team was smart, they'd be like, shut up.
Yeah.
Which is still crazy how Ryan Reynolds went on to SNL. Like things were starting to die a little bit, and then he goes on SNL and does that skit.
And it brought it all back.
And it brought it all back up and makes it look like even worse.
But maybe it's just we're dying for anything.
So yeah, or maybe he just wanted attention. Like, wait, things are dying. I want more attention, which
Yeah.
seems to be like his MO. But that's what's happened with the Diddy trial. It's just kind of like, and now with Karen Reed and the Idaho 4 and all these other like high-profile cases, P Diddy's kind of like, whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel like
A trafficking case? Well, you have murder cases.
yeah,
Come on.
But I feel like that's like, to me, that's where I thought the Weinstein case was so important for public policy, the Me Too movement,
Culture.
It was a conviction against inappropriate behavior.
Change kind of
And-
the C-suites of the world.
Yeah, and abuse of power and authority. And I hope that that's not lost on the P. Diddy trial. Because hopefully it's going to send some message to music producers or whoever in the industries or who in any position of power. You can't do that. You can't do that. So we're going to find out. We'll update you guys. But I think it's interesting legal analysis. This one is just interesting. And I want to see what domino, if any, falls. And we'll update you along the way. So any final thoughts, P. Diddy?
I'm thinking.
What was your favorite song? Do you have a favorite P. Diddy song as we conclude?
I don't have a favorite that I could name off the top of my head.
No?
Tyler, no, you know this though, because I'm bad with names and faces. Music, like the music trivia, I'm terrible at.
Yeah.
But then when you play the music, I go, oh yeah, good song.
I don't have it on the top of my head either. He's got a lot of good ones, though. Bad Boys for Life. That's a good one. I don't know. Is that the name of the song? Anyways. All right. Hey, thank you guys for tuning in. If you like our content, subscribe and share. And it's a lot of fun to talk about these cases. And it's just super interesting. Tune in next time. And we're going to talk about the Idaho 4 case and some other high-profile cases. And it's just an interesting time right now with legal. I think everyone's tuned in. Everyone's tuned in to Secret Lives of More Than Once. I think there's going to be some crazy stuff coming out of that stuff, too. So if you guys are watching Secret Lives of More Than Once, we're going to talk about that.
Local news.
Local news with Utah. Just an interesting time to be alive with, like, legal and injury and verdicts and juries and how people see things. Because when you hear, like, and you see all the comments on social media about all the different, like, perspectives of the Karen Reed trial, the P Diddy trial, people see things so differently. And I think that's so fascinating. Like, he's guilty, he's not guilty, or Idaho Ford defendant did it. Brian, is it Rosen? What's his name? Krober? And we're going to talk about that case. But because now we're going to talk about this in another podcast. But now there's a lot of people on social media that are saying that the roommates were in on it with the murderer. And you're kind of like...
If he is the murderer.
If he is the murderer. And then you're like, how did you come up with that? It's just crazy perspective of potential... of the jurors and then potential jurors. And that's just just public perception of... It's just so fascinating. So we're going to talk about more next podcast. Until next time, you guys, just know that everything we're doing... We analyze these cases. We analyze the civil cases because we think it's important to do everything we can to win for you, period. That's why we do it. One, it's entertaining, but that's also why we do it. Yeah. So tune in next time, you guys. Until next time, stay classy.